My name is Scott Marlowe. I work with the Rural Advancement Foundation International USA, based in Pittsburgh, North Carolina. This is our conversation about why we spend lots of money on commodities and not on fruits and vegetables. The question that we've been hearing a lot, all the way from classrooms to the New York Times, is why do we, as a country, spend billions of dollars on corn and wheat and soybeans and commodities, and a small fraction of that on fruits and vegetables, broccoli, tomatoes, and things like that. Now, when that question is asked, usually there's a sense of it not being fair. It's why do we give them something and not them something? Beyond that, there's also sort of a sense of, so we give this money to things that are unhealthy, the corn, wheat, and beans get turned into mean, nasty, ugly processed foods, whereas not these fruits and vegetables. And even beyond that, there's this sense of usually when the question is asked, the question's not really answered, which means that by asking the question and not answering it, there's this suggestion that there isn't an answer. And that's not true. So, as we look at the commodity programs and the structure of agriculture, and we look at what we need to do to change them and reform them and make them more sustainable and better for our planet and better for our people and all that kind of other stuff, in my mind, it's very interesting, very important. It's very important that we understand what they do, what they don't do, and why they're there. We talk about commodities, we throw this term around. What are commodities? Well, the real definition, the full definition of a commodity is anything that's sold in a way that assumes that any one unit of something is exactly the same as every other unit of it. It doesn't matter if I have a bushel of number 2 dent corn, it doesn't matter if it came from my farm or your farm or some guy down the road's farm or a farm in Somalia or a farm in Brazil. It makes no difference. It's a bushel of number 2 dent corn. But in this conversation, when people are talking about commodities, usually what they're talking about is the 20-something crops that have federal commodity programs. The big 6 are corn, wheat, soybeans, peanuts, cotton, rice. You can throw in there sugar, dairy, then you get to oats and barley, and then dry beans, sunflower seeds, lentils. And eventually you get down to things like mohair and honey. All of these things have a whole different set of programs, some of which provide farmers a payment for the difference between the price in the marketplace and a fair price, some of which actually restrict production to a certain extent. But there's a wide range of programs that fall under this title of commodities programs, all of which are found in Title I of the Farm Bill. So a lot of times you'll hear about it as Title I programs or Title I crops. But that's usually what we're talking about when we're talking about commodities in this conversation. So a lot of times people, when they're having this discussion, say, yeah, but corn and soybeans are not food. We don't eat corn and soybeans. They're turned into lots of other stuff. And we're not going to debate that whole thing here. We're not going to get into that. And to a certain extent, it's true. But the fact that corn and soybeans are turned into lots and lots of other things, not just food products, but ink and building materials and all kinds of things. These kinds of products become a part of lots and lots of different things. The fact that that's true increases their importance and their effect in our economy rather than decreases it. The fact that they're used for many things other than food doesn't mean that we shouldn't care about them and we shouldn't, look at how to make sure that those markets are fair. It means that it's even more important. Just like when the price of oil went up, or when the price of oil goes up, it's not just the gas at the pump that you're paying more for, it's oil as a part of all kinds of other things. So in this, we're not going to take on, are corn and beans good or bad? But what we can say is that they're important. Whether we like them or don't like them, they're very important because they become a part of many, many other things. And the bottom line is that since the 1930s, we've pretty much all agreed that keeping production of food and commodities in the United States is very important, and that the government has a major role in doing that. We've agreed on that for a very long time. So it's not if the government should be involved in these markets and all these things. The question is how, and what are the mechanisms? How do we do this? So if we boil it down, commodities are different from fruits and vegetables in the crop itself, in the way in which it's grown, the scale, all of the things about how it's grown, and also in the economic environment in which they're sold and traded. All three of these things come together to create a situation which is inherently unfair. It's a very challenging situation. It is also extremely important. And so, over time, the government has taken on these roles. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to start at the beginning, at the smallest level. What is the difference between these things? And we'll talk about each one of these. The nature of the crop, the environment in which it's grown, and then the environment in which it's marketed, and how that leads us to having the programs that we have today.